Alrighty, everyone, we are back at it again. VV Bick Below and Mr. C.J. We're back at it. Today we're discussing Doolittle by the Pixies.
Oh
This
yeah.
legendary album This legendary album was released at the tail end of the 80s on the cusp of a big boom for the upcoming indie rock scene that would dominate in the 90s. The influences of this album and band are still felt to this day. I've stolen everything I've ever written from this album, just like Kurt Cobain. While not as raw or stripped back as its equally amazing predecessor, this album features some of the best pop music known to man. Dare I say, Vivek, the Beatles of the 80s and 90s, possibly? I feel like that's fighting words for some people because, like, I know particularly you're a huge John Lennon fan, especially some of his more controversial stuff he did in the early 70s. Some of his gamer moments. I know you're pretty
I
hardcore
mean, I
fan.
know my favorite song that he ever wrote, but
Yeah, it's Woman. That's that song's great. But anyway, we're not here to talk about old fuckface Lennon.
mhm.
Anyway, we're back. We're talking about fucking Doolittle, one of the greatest albums of all time. Some might argue, and I feel like you're going to argue with me on this because I think you have a better understanding of albums of music than me. From the way I can see in your crazy eyes right now, I think you're going to contradict everything I'm going to say. But fuck it anyway. So what do you think of this album, Vivek?
Yeah, I think it's a great album. It's one of I mean, compared to the last band we were talking about,
Yeah,
this is like
that's
leagues,
it's a night and
leagues,
day difference.
yeah, leagues above. But is it my favorite Pixies album? No. Is it my second favorite Pixies album? Yeah, I think so. You know, I don't know. Yeah, probably.
And
Um,
I think we should dedicate another episode to Surfer Rosa, just because that
yeah,
album should be talked about just as much as Doolittle. But in particularly the production of that, I think that the production of Surfer Rosa versus Doolittle to me is insanely different. Both are incredible in their own rights, but Steve Albini and Gil Norton definitely are two different producers at the end of the day.
mm,
But I something about this album because Surfer Rosa is definitely more stripped back and more raw, whereas this album has bigger songs. It's more lush. So it just depends on, I guess, the listener's preferences and what they want to hear. But I think as far as like songwise, Doolittle features so many more strong like pop songs, while Surfer Rosa kind of like delves more into the abstract experimental side to it. So
sure.
that's kind of what I get out of it. I still love both. I love them both immensely. The Pixies are one of my all-time favorites.
Hmm.
Um, I don't, I, you know, post Ken Deal, the quality of their albums have gone down significantly. The last album that came out in 2019 was all right,
Mm.
but the two EPs in the Indie Cindy, God, it's a dumb name. Uh, I listened to that and I was pretty bummed because I'm like, damn, the Pixies were so fucking great, but definitely like Kim Deal leaving just left a giant hole they can't fill. And
Yeah. I always wonder how much songwriting she does and how much songwriting, like how it was split.
well, that's why they there were so many problems between fucking Black Francis and Kim Deal, like because he wanted complete control of the band, and she was like, I want equal amount of songwriting credits because she's an incredible songwriter, and we now know that because of the Breeders.
Hmm.
So it was definitely some. It sounds like freaking old Francie boy had some ego issues.
Well, yeah. I mean, have you ever heard about the album that she was working with Guided by Voices on one of their albums, and it
Yeah,
like
Under the Bushes, Under the Stars.
is that the one that? Oh, I thought there was one that they scrapped
I'm
that
sure. I
she
think there
was
was.
like the producer of or something, and it was just because her and Robert Pollard like kept butting heads and stuff.
That was. I don't know about the album. I know that was definitely the era of Under the Bushes, Under the Stars, because Ballard and her they kind of dated, I think, but they definitely had some issues, and I think she said she hated them or some bullshit. At least that was back in the '90s.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, because Steve Albini did I want to say it's he did a few songs on that album. And it was like to remake the Young Flyer. Um, but we're not here talking about Guided by Voices too.
Yeah, I
I
just
want
yeah.
to. I'm wearing my
yeah,
my faithful GBV hat, but yeah,
yeah.
definitely. And the
You're
Breeders did a cover of I Gotta Buy Voices song "Shocker" in Gloomtown, and the music video is really cool.
hmm.
But yeah, enough of that. Kim Deal's. I love the Breeders, but like there's just this certain era in music where the Pixies existed in the like late '80s, early '90s that was just like no others could compare to them. There's so many great bands that come out of that era, but for some reason in particular, it's like lightning in a bottle for this fucking band. Because Bossa Nova was a fantastic album too. Was it Trump Le Monde? Trump Le Monde? It's like they released like 4 or 5 albums and Come on Pilgrim. I think that's the EP.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just an insane early half of their record like catalog, and everything else past like the 2010s has just been a complete disappointment. I would still like to see them, but you know, let's get into it, boy. Let's get into it.
Yeah. Well, I
Get
mean, like
into it.
we were talking about just how Surfer Rosa is like maybe a bit more experimental or it brings in more of the experimental stuff. But I think, this record obviously still brings in a lot of like I don't know, like weirdness that just I think it's just how they combine like the weird off kilter kind of like psychotic sounding stuff with like
It's a very
pop.
paranoid album.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where it's like a really big highlight of this band. It's just like how they're able to kind of fuse those two things, and I think that you can definitely hear that in how that inspired like Nirvana and other bands.
Oh yeah,
Um,
definitely. And then like, it's known to every music fan, every fucking weirdo that is that famous Kurt Cobain quote. And I think they even mentioned it in like the reunion of the Pixies in like 2004 when they went on tour, but they like started it off with a quote from Kurt Cobain that was like, we stole everything from the Pixies.
The first time I heard the Pixies would have been around 1988. I found it just about the most compelling music outside of Sonic Youth in the entire 80s, I think. In America, they just didn't ignite people the way that they ignited them in Europe.
I can't think of a better opening track to this record than the bombastic debaser. Kim Deal's iconic bass line pops off and leads us into some of the greatest, loudest, angriest pop music to ever friggin' exist. Not only sets the breakneck pace of this album, but introduces the Pixies' trademark quiet, loud approach that they became famous for.
Three elements, I think, made them important as a sound band. One was their pure dynamics, the very obvious now, but not obvious at the time, dynamic of keeping the verse extremely quiet and then getting it erupting into a blaze of noise for the chorus.
yeah, I mean, I remember the first time I listened to this album would have been high school for sure.
Yeah,
I remember at first I kind of uh yeah, my friend's dad had a bunch of music on his iTunes thing, and I had one of those big ass iPods that like it's like 60 gigs or whatever,
the
and
bricks.
he let me just like put all his music on my iPod, and I had like all the Guided by Voices albums, and then I had you know Pixies and some other stuff from the 90s. Um, and yeah, I remember listening to this album a lot. And then I remember in high school there was this kid I knew who I didn't really like that much, and he really liked the Pixies in this album, so that kind of made me want to like dislike them. So for a while, I just, just stopped listening to them. But now that I'm older, it's just crazy how good this album is, and yeah, I mean, I definitely it's super influential on how I try to like write songs and how just like how it impacted that whole like the next decade of music is crazy. Yeah, well, why don't we go ahead and play another track or a bit of another track? I think
Go ahead. Yeah, we've been
yeah,
talking
let's
too much.
let's play a little bit of Tame just cuz it's I think it shows off a lot of like the vocals especially show off a lot of like kind of the more experimental side of this record,
It's a very scary song.
and yeah,
The
it's
way he just
pretty
screams.
yeah, and it's a really interesting song I think to do as the second track. Like you open with the basser, it's really poppy and catchy and pulls you in, and then you hit him with this. It's kind of like,
Hit him with the 1-2.
yeah, where
That's
is
what I'm
this
saying.
album going?
Like Debaser opens it, and then it's just from there. and we'll go into more because I know you said like you had some songs that you're like, it's not. I don't really like it.
Yeah, we'll get there. Let's play
We'll
this
get there
first.
eventually.
Let's play this.
Hips like Cinderella. Must be having a good shame. Talking sweet about nothing. Cookie and picture.
It's still like a catchy song like that. Bassline is super catchy, and it's still, I don't know. It's just awesome.
Yeah, that's the Pixie trademark of having a song open with Kim Deal's bass.
Mhm.
But in that song in particular, Kim and him both like the dynamics of their vocals is just it just sounds like they both have been held captive for like a week in the back of a trunk and they're both just dying and he's screaming for help and her backing vocal of just it's pure insanity and it gives me anxiety and it's fucking incredible.
Cease to resist, giving my goodbye. Drive my car into the ocean. You think I'm dead, but I sail away on a wave of mutilation, wave of mutilation, wave of
Yeah, that's definitely one of my all-time favorite choruses. The guitars on that just sound so lush. Very, it's like that because I've always seen a lot of people say like the Pixies are similar to surf rock, which I've never really understood. I guess like the reverberated guitars, I can kind of hear that on this song, but it's not like your typical like 50s, 60s surf rock. This has a sort of a darker edge, especially like because like the meaning of this song is just about like Japanese businessmen killing themselves. So
Is
it
that what
has
it's
that,
about?
yeah, it has that edge to it. Like, but
Mhm.
it's just so poppy that you're not even thinking about it. You're just singing "Wave of Mutilation."
Yeah,
But
I mean,
yeah,
I think that's just a classic Pixies trope is to like sing something really dark, but then it's just super poppy, and you don't even really like you can totally miss that aspect of it that it's a dark song.
yeah, and this song is a good representation of what I'm talking about in production, like verse like this album versus Surfer Rosa. Because if you put this song on Surfer Rosa, like in the middle of it, or like following Gigantic or something, I think it would kind of sound out of place. I would have liked to hear how this song would sound like if Albini was at the reins of it, like producing it. But on this album, it just makes more sense, I think, compared to Surfer Rosa. I don't know. I don't mean that in a bad way, but this song is just so big and lush. It's full all the different guitars and the melodies in it.
Mhm.
It's not as stripped back. It would just be out of place, I think, if it came out on Surfer Rosa.
Yeah, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
perfect pop song. It's just a perfect
I
pop song.
yeah, it's like Wave of Mutilation and Here Comes Your Man, definitely two of like the best indie pop songs. If that's what you want to call it. Because I know like indie is kind of a blanket term nowadays, but at the time it
Yeah,
was like
I mean, I
college
feel
rock
like now
alternative.
they call it like alt rock. Like this is considered alternative, and then whatever modern day indie is, car seat headdresser, that kind of crap.
That kind of crap. You're not a car seat headrest fan?
I like some of it, but I mean, what I mean is like I think like the term indie rock has changed, like what it means,
Yeah,
kind of
it
shifted
means a
in a
lot.
way.
It's a lot different now because it's definitely like
Like it's
I've
not
seen.
even bands that are independent anymore. You know?
Yeah, exactly. It's now indie rock is like people look at it as like a commercial. It's commercialization. It's very commercial now. Like you would see it in like the mid 2000s or like late 2000s, early 2010s. Like how like a lot of like the indie music was being advertised on like cell phone commercials, that kind of stuff. And I think especially like the beginning of 2010, 2011, there was that like indie folk revival kind of thing, which I'm not saying it didn't go away, but it was just brought to the forefront of the mainstream with like what's that fucking stupid ass band, the Lumineers, and
Yeah.
all those like, hey, ho, and they had like Mumford and Sons, bands like that. And that was
Yeah.
like perceived as like indie rock, indie folk, and it was like super mainstream and used to like sell products. So, but definitely in 1889, 1989, 1990, it meant indie rock was a different term.
Mhm.
Is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, why did you start talking about that?
I just go off on fucking random ass things, dude. I've been so bored and I don't have anything to do. So I'm just like, I feel like, again, you know, we're talking about this album and I'm looking at you and you're my ugly ass therapist because I can't find anyone else that wants to talk to me about a fucking Pixies album in depth
Yeah,
like
I'm the
this.
only idiot who you're like, hey, let's do a review of an album. I'm like, yeah, sure.
We're not even
Fine.
reviewing it. I don't know. We're
Or
just
yeah,
talking
just talking
about it.
about it. Yeah, we're just two guys just fucking chilling out, talking about some good
Hey, we're
music.
two fucking dudes hanging out on the internet.
Yeah,
talking
two fucking
about
losers.
two fucking losers. I'm on the East Coast eating my hoagie. You're in the Midwest kidnapping children because that's what it looks like you do.
I don't.
It's the lighting, folks. Y'all,
I've never kidnapped a children against
I've
their
never
own will.
kidnapped a children. You were the guy in the Barney suit.
I was not the guy in the. It's an inside joke. We won't get into that one, right? But yeah, Pixies.
So I guess out
Uh,
of the entire album, like we've talked about a few of the bigger songs on here. I know you and I kind of differ in opinion on this. Like you said, after This Monkey Has Gone to Heaven, which if you want to talk about that more, you said after that it kind of dips off in quality, which I'm pretty eager to hear about because I don't necessarily agree with that.
well, just to me, I feel like it's just like a long time after that before there's another song that I really like. That's a big song, a big hit. I guess is just what I mean by that. It just I feel like a lot of the songs after that, like I don't know, Crackety Jones, Number 13 Baby, La La, Love You.
La 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 la
I
la
mean, like
la
they're
la
good. They're
la.
not like bad songs or anything, but they're not like I don't think the album is consistent in how like it starts off so strong, and I don't think it carries it all the way through the whole track list. Because like yeah, like after you hit, I mean, it's just such a like yeah. After like you hit Monkey Gone to Heaven, and it's just like it kind of peaks, I think, and then it's like a valley for a while until you get back to Hey.
Mm,
Um,
I understand where you're coming from, but I think Mr. Greaves is just as good as songs like as I Bleed. I want to like I understand like I think that it's weaker compared to songs like fucking Debaser, Here Comes Your Man, of course.
I mean, they're stacking the tracks to be, you know,
Yeah,
they're
they've
just stacking
definitely
the order so that it's not hit after hit after hit and it runs out of steam. But I don't know, it just doesn't like I feel like up from Debaser up to Monkey Gone to Heaven is like a perfect. It just feels perfect to me in a way, and then like after that, the second half of the album kind of just
so
totally
you
dips.
saying out of the rest of the 8 songs there's only one good song on there?
I mean, I wouldn't even say like saying good is I think too, like it's not like
Great.
they're not good. They're just not amazing, and
I, g-
they're not as good as the other ones.
I get where you're coming from. I don't I think you're wrong in every stretch of the imagination. I think Crackety Jones, La La Love You, and fucking There Goes My Gun are just as great as like any other Pixie song. But in the context of the album, I understand. Like I get it. Like yeah, it's
Yeah.
not as strong as
Well, yeah, I'm just
the
right
first
and
half
you're
of the
just
album.
wrong, and
but Gouge Away is one of my all-time favorite Pixie songs,
I mean, yeah, I love that song,
and I think that it's a perfect closer to this
and I love
Paranoid
Solver
Ages
too.
album.
I kind of wish, honestly, I wish there was more Kim Deal, just Kim Deal. I mean,
Huge
gigantic.
difference.
Like I think another reason I love Surfer Rosa so much is gigantic. It's just so good, and it reminds you. I mean, like obviously the Breeders came after, but it just reminds me of the Breeders every time I hear it.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
that's the ultimate difference. I think is that like Kim Deal was more present on Surfer Rosa compared to Doolittle, and that's
yeah,
kind of when they got into that turmoil of like creative control because Kim Deal is fucking amazing as we've talked about. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Anyway, why don't you go on your little fucking spiel on why This Monkey's Gone to Heaven is your favorite song? Is it the lyrical
um,
content? Is it the guitars?
yeah. I just think it's. I don't know. I just remember listening to it all the time in high school. I think I just liked it because it said monkey. Honestly, the first time I listened to it, but yeah, just like how just the story of the song and like yeah, the part where he starts going into like what are those called, like angel numbers or whatever, 444 555.
If God is seven, if God is seven, then the devil is
I think
six.
you did it in the wrong order.
I know. If
It
man is
is
five,
five. Yeah,
if
yeah.
man is five, if man is five. It sounds like it sounds like you could like he's like a TV was it TV and a TV jealous or TV angelist. I don't know what was it called. I can't like a
Evangelical
evangelical like show
TV.
person.
Yeah, yeah.
TV
I know what you're saying.
angelist. I don't know. I'm a
Yeah, I don't
fucking
know what the
idiot.
word for that
I
is.
don't know what the fucking word is. We're not educated
What am I, some
guys.
kind of fucking librarian?
What am I, a librarian? What am I, a loser that reads? But
uh,
one of those insane like Joel Osteen figures that's on TV, like the 700 Club, Mass for Shut-ins kind of shit. Like, and he's like this, like it sounds like someone from the southern that's like from the south that goes to church and is like, if man is five, if
yeah,
man is five, then the devil is six. Lord, the devil is six. And guess
yeah,
what? God is seven. God is seven. And everyone like stands up and they start clapping and they're dancing and they're like, this monkey's gone to heaven, ladies and gentlemen. This monkey has retired to heaven with
yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a cool. I don't know. It's just like I remember, yeah, being in high school and just not knowing what it was, not knowing what it was about, but just liking. I don't know, like the story, like that first part where it's like the guy gets, what is it? He gets killed, crushed or something by.
Like 10 million pounds of sludge from New York and New Jersey.
Yeah, I mean that's just such a crazy. And honestly, now every time I hear this song, it just makes me think of that time when we drove from New Jersey, or basically from Philly to New York or whatever, to Hoboken. It just makes me think of that. Like it makes me now. It makes me think the song is just about a guy doing that drive, and he gets one of those semis, fucking unloads a bunch of sludge on him, and he dies.
But yeah, that all that sludge is just like, yeah, after like, because like I didn't really understand that lyric when I was younger, growing up in the Midwest, and after being on the East Coast and going to New York and like being in New Jersey all the fucking time, I'm like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. You got killed by 10 million pounds of sludge, and it's like, because I know like when you first went to New York and we were in the subways in Brooklyn, like you were like, is that human shit on the ground?
Yeah, there
It's
was
like,
just a fucking turd. And at first I was like, "That's gross," and then yeah, we were going around, and you realize, yeah, you can't go to the bathroom anywhere in fucking New York. Of course,
yeah, I
people.
tried telling you that 1.5 million damn times. I was like, you gotta pee
I'm just
all like
saying that, like,
we're at a restaurant or a
I
bar,
think
you gotta piss whenever you have to
I'm just
pee.
saying, I think they're justified. The people taking shits in the subway, there should be more of those people.
My
Protest.
my dude, there's plenty of those
Let's
people.
start a
Like,
revolution.
let's start a revolution of shitting in the streets.
Yeah.
But I think that's definitely where he got the inspiration for those lyrics. Yeah,
Yeah. Why do we listen to a little bit of This Monkey's Gone to Heaven, or
yeah,
Monkey
yeah.
Gone
Put
to
it on,
Heaven?
put it on.
I'm putting it on already.
Put it on now. Hurry.
There was a guy. An underwater guy who controlled the sea. Got killed by 10.
I mean, I think like this song is just so like, yeah, it's a perfect example of like kind of their quiet to loud thing. Which, I mean, I think saying it like it's just this simple thing and kind of undersells. Just like, I mean, it is simple, but it's also kind of like the way you. That's how you want a chorus or whatever to hit. You want it to go from quiet to loud, so the dynamics work that way.
Yeah,
And
when it's just the bass line and him singing,
yeah,
and then it immediately erupts into like that fucking loud chorus with the loud guitars coming into it. That's
yeah,
now it's so obvious now that it's like yes, that's how it should have been, but at the time it's like it was fairly new, and people just couldn't fucking wrap their heads around it. They were way ahead of their time.
yeah. And I think there's a quote from I don't know if it's a quote, but I think I read a passage where Kurt Cobain was like talking about the Pixies, and I don't know if he's talking about Doolittle or Surfer Rosa, but he's just talking about how like he's saying, yeah, the production is good, but even if the production was bad, these songs are just written so well that it doesn't matter. Like that's what's really important and awesome about these songs is that how well they're written and
Yeah,
you know
I
like
believe he was
how
talking about
they
Surfer Rosa.
yeah probably, but I mean it's still true on this album too. It's just like how good the songwriting writing is, and just how it's not just that like they go quiet to loud, but the quiet part is good, you know, and then the loud part they have something to go to. It isn't just that it's quiet to loud. It's like there's a reason why they're getting louder.
Yeah.
Like and I think yeah, it's just a really this album. Yeah, I think this album is just a really good example of great songwriting and kind of doing it in a way that hadn't been done. Using instrumentation and kind of sounds and narratives that hadn't been really. Like that's the other part of it is like I think a lot of the lyrics and the writing on the album are really individualistic to the Pixies. Like I don't, there's not that many people who write songs like about this stuff or like in this way.
Oh, for sure. And if they do, it's nowhere in the league as what the Pixies have done. Well, and then like that's like, and it's a shame because it's like the past couple of albums, to me personally, have been such a letdown. And I don't know if it's because it's like they're held to such high standards. And it's like, yeah, it's good seeing that they're back and they're playing. But I've just tried to listen to, I can't remember what the album was called in 2018 or 2019, but it was a major improvement over Indie Cindy though. I cannot get into that. I don't know, but it's weird. It's hard because like when you have albums like Surfer Rosa and Doolittle, like how do you fucking top that? And
Yeah,
like
I mean, I don't think. I mean, I really like what's the Bossa Nova? Is that
Bossa Nova
the
is fantastic. That was the
yeah
follow up to this record.
yeah I yeah that I mean that record's awesome too. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I haven't really listened to any of the new stuff. Any like really, yeah, I don't think I've listened to any of that, and I don't really. I think a lot of bands like this that were big way back when, like I mean, I went and saw Guided by Voices. I think you saw them too recently,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's cool to see them, but I'm not like expecting them to put out a record that I really care that much about. You know what I mean?
Um no.
You don't know what I mean?
I don't.
See, like
This
I think a lot of these bands are like obviously past their prime. Like they're not
they
gonna.
I bet in the case of Guided by Voices, like that's a band that deserves its own like 20-part episode. I don't
Sure,
even
I
know.
mean they can still write a good song, but it's not like they're not
It's
like
not going to resonate or
relevant
feel
in
like
the
how it
same way
is.
as they were in the '90s. And
I no, I still think they are.
no way, there's no. I mean, the music, just like what's coming out and what's popular now, is so different from like what was back then. And even I mean, yeah, there's small scenes and there's like I guess like a big punk scene on like Bandcamp and stuff, but it's totally overshadowed by other genres and newer genres, and I just don't think they'll
I
ever.
think that's with any band that's over a certain age and a certain how many decades they've been out.
That's
But
what I'm saying.
I
Yeah.
don't think they're overshadowed. I think there's always going to be like that. Okay, this is what's next. This is what's coming out, and that,
It's
which is
not like
good.
anybody at the. I mean, I was probably when going to the Guided by Voices show. I was probably you and I are probably like the youngest people there.
No, not at all. There was literally two 10-year-old boys at the concert.
But were they with their dad or were they?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Like,
But
yes,
yeah,
they were
I
with their
mean,
dads,
I'm saying they wouldn't have
but
probably gone there by
I think it's
themselves.
also the area you're in because seeing them in Philly, it was a shit ton of younger people. When I first saw them in Indy back in 2017, it was like 50-50. Older people, old
So you're
heads.
saying that Guided by Voices is still as relevant as they were whenever Alien Lanes and all that stuff came out?
It just I would say so. I would say so.
You're an idiot.
I'm not an idiot.
You're a
I'm
fool.
not a freaking idiot.
You're a damn fool.
I think they're relevant to the people that love them. It's
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about
I know
like them
I
writing a
reject your
song, and
hypothesis.
I'm talking about them writing things and it being influential to like the other music that's coming out in the the newer bands or just newer like
Okay,
it's not
you made fun of car seat headrests earlier.
yeah
Okay, the huge Gotta Buy Voices fans, and they're car seat headrest is like a huge indie rock band right now,
sure
and they're still
okay yeah
yeah. Yeah. See, that's the relevance felt by Gotta Buy Voices on all these bands.
I
It's
guess
just
I think the moment of that
can't
music
teach an
is
old you can't
past.
teach an old dog new tricks.
I think
You
the
can't.
moment of a lot of that music is past in a way. Like it's not even if it's good, and I don't know. I mean, yeah, like I guess it's on Pitchfork. What does that mean? That doesn't mean shit to
Well,
me.
do you still check Pitchfork?
I don't. No, I don't.
Nah, me neither. I unfollowed them a while ago.
Oh
They're
yeah,
just annoying as shit.
they are pretty annoying.
But
I
I mean,
kind of
some
wish
of the
they'd go back to just writing like shitty, mean reviews.
But see,
Like,
that we're getting into a totally different conversation here. No one cares
well,
about
yeah,
album
because you're
reviews.
pissing me off.
No
Because
one
you
cares
said
about album reviews. They want to know what's happening. They want to know what's shocking. They want to know if Arcade Fire's getting canceled and
oh
Pitchfork
yeah,
broke the story. That's what they want to know. They don't give a shit about some fucking stupid ass album that just came out.
sure. All right. Well, I don't know. I just don't think. I'm not. I'm just saying. I'm not expecting the Pixies to write an album that I'm gonna like love as much as Doolittle
I am.
next year. Well, you're a very weird man.
I want to be pleased by everything I like nonstop. I want to. No. I understand what you're saying, but no, I agree. I mean, I understand. Like, but it's just like after a certain point, when you release so many good albums and you're coming back 30 something years later, is there a point of putting out new music? Because look at bands like Neutral Milk Hotel. The last album came out what 97, 98, and
Yeah.
nothing. There might have been. I think there was like a single or something, which I don't even think. No, there wasn't. But I saw them in 2014, sold out, and everyone still fucking talks about Neutral Milk Hotel and the Airplane Over the Sea. The album's still very relevant. It's outlived its fucking, like you said, its relevancy because it was that album was a product of its decade. But then look at it now. That band can still go on tour and sell out every fucking show they go to. And that's what the Pixies are doing. But the Pixies are still making albums.
Mhm.
Now, we're getting into that area of like, can you make as a band like the Pixies, if you just keep putting out bad albums all the time, does it hurt your status? Does it hurt like, oh, this like I don't know. That's a weird because like there's a
Yeah.
lot of bands like that.
I mean, I don't think it hurts their status because
No, it
people.
doesn't. It doesn't with them, but some bands I've like, oh man, this album's so fucking bad that I can't listen to anything else they've ever done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just hating. I'm just being a hater.
Yeah, I'm the one that's rambling. And you're fucking over there just like everything sucks. Everything just blows now.
What?
Fucking
I'm
hate
not.
everything.
I'm just saying that I'm not. There's other stuff I'd rather listen to than a new Pixies album. I guess.
No, I know exactly. And
I'd rather listen to Doolittle again or Surfer Rosa.
well,
again.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Don't listen to any of their newer like output. Like it's totally fine that you have it. I just listen to it out of morbid curiosity, and I think a lot of a
You're
lot of
glutton for
Pixies fans-
punishment. Yeah.
I am. I'm very gluttonous. Anyway, so there's one standout track on the album I don't think we talked about, and that's the song that sounds like it was written by the Beatles. And that's "Here Comes Your Man."
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite little melodies. That opening bass and guitar line.
Outside there's a boxcar waiting outside the family store. Out by the fire breathing. Outside we wait till face turns blue.
Yeah, I absolutely love that intro. The music video is hilarious too because they're all standing there like with their mouths open, just staring blankly at the screen. Have you seen it?
What?
The music video to "Here Comes Your Man."
Oh no, I thought you were talking about us. I thought you were saying like while we're listening to the music, we're just both like,
No, no, that's like the the funny thing about that video is that like they just refuse to sing along because they're just like playing along with the music. Obviously, that's what people do for music
Mhm.
videos. But their mouths are just open. Like whenever Kim's singing, her mouth just opens and they just stare blankly at the camera, and it's like
I think I've seen that before, but it's been a long time since I watched that.
love it, classic. That is how that song isn't played all the fucking time, and like because I feel like a song like that if it was released in fuck like 10 years ago, it would have been like Billboard's top #1, or even 20 years ago. You know, back when like the Strokes and fucking I don't want to say the White Stripes, but like in that era of the revival of indie rock in the early 2000s, if "Here Comes Your Man" came out, I think that would have been like people would have been like, "This is as big as Belle and Sebastian" or something like that. But that
Yeah,
song is
I
very
mean that
huge.
song has like the most plays on the album on
Oh, for
Spotify.
sure.
Um,
But that
and
should have
yeah,
been like that should have been fucking "Smells Like Teen Spirit" for them.
yeah,
Like how Doolittle didn't sell as much as fucking Nevermind is absolutely insanity.
yeah. You do you want to like maybe I don't know. I like yeah. I wonder why. Like maybe it's just because it was newer when when it came out.
It
Like
was they're a
or
weird fucking band.
yeah,
Like that album is very weird. I felt like it would have been it would have been hard to sell because like even their image, it was just like they're all fucking weird looking.
yeah. I guess yeah.
They didn't.
I mean yeah. I mean the way Nirvana gets like was co-opted into the mainstream and fashion and all that stuff is. I mean it's honestly probably better that the Pixies didn't do that because it
Yeah,
was just. I think anything if that happens to any band, it kind of ends up probably ruining it. But it's um yeah, it is interesting to think about like why because it's better if it's not just as good it's better so it's kind of interesting to think like about why that would have happened. I mean like that's the thing about it, like it is weird that it didn't like blow up like become the biggest thing ever, but it's also weird that it even got the chance to have the
exist.
production
Yeah,
and stuff that it did. I mean like, I know you looked up some stuff about them and about this album. Do you know anything about like how they got the chance to make like record with people like I mean Steve Albini seems like the kind of guy like there's so many band examples of bands like where Steve Albini does their album and it's not like the biggest hit, but it's like either right before the biggest hit or I guess in the case of Nirvana it's after the big hit, but it's like like Slint, like he did the first Slint album Tweez or whatever.
yeah. And that's
And
like yeah, and then they went on to make Spiderland, which is
yeah,
you know
did he do Pod by the Breeders or am I thinking of I know the drummer from Slint is on Pod.
yeah. I don't know if Steve Albini did Pod,
Yeah, that might I just might have made that up just
but
now.
that's like but Steve Albini. Yeah, it's funny because he did In Utero, which wasn't as big as Nevermind. It's a
Yeah,
better album than Nevermind.
yeah, I like it more.
And then he did Tweez, and then Slint went on to do Spiderland, which again is a groundbreaking landmark album that influenced that pretty much like helped post rock and helped create a new branch of that.
Yeah, yeah,
And then he did Surfer Rosa, Doolittle. Everyone knows Pixies for Doolittle. And there's that mishandling of the Fugazi album he did, which would have been great to hear. There's a really cool, it's like a 2-3 hour long interview with Ian MacKaye and Steve Albini, just about music in the 80s and 90s and stuff. But they talk about that and how like when he gets in the car to go back to DC, they listen to the Steve Albini shit and it just didn't sound right. I don't know. So I don't necessarily know a lot of the backside to it. I know that when Come On Pilgrim came out, like it did fairly well and got the attention of a lot of people, and I think that's how they ended up doing stuff with Steve Albini. And then Steve Albini later criticized the Pixies, saying they were like pretty much just saying they wanted to be sellouts. Like he said that they were like hungry cows wanting to be led around or something because they wanted pretty much just saying they wanted to be like a successful rock band and
hmm
huge and criticized him for it. So
which yeah, I mean I feel like he does that a lot, and it's kind of bullshit that he does that at this point because he's also on record for saying like he'll like his whole like mantra or whatever is that he'll basically record anybody. You know, like my job as the producer, engineer, or whatever is to like help you deliver your sound or whatever. And it's like I don't know. It's just like it's it feels like the fact like how strongly his beliefs are on about like selling out and like the mainstream. It's kind of like you're kind of always there anyway. And I don't know. I feel like Steve Albini, like I love his production style and everything, but he seems a bit of he seems a little annoying. Seems like an annoying guy to be around for too long, and maybe that's why all these people end up dissing him.
I Jesus Christ, I think you're the annoying guy here.
Maybe me and Steve Albini probably wouldn't get along, maybe, or maybe we'd be
You're
best buds.
I was gonna say you're kind of a prick.
Fuck.
No, I'm not saying anything bad about Steve Albini, but I just brought that up because I thought that was interesting.
Mhm.
But yeah, like you said, he's gone on record, said a lot of stuff like that about bands. But no, I don't know. That's pretty much the entirety. Like we covered a lot of Doolittle.
Mhm.
We didn't, on some of the back that back half of the album. Yeah, I kind of agree with you that some of the songs aren't as strong as the first half of the album, but I think that they're great in their own right. And that each song is well written, and especially songs like I love La La Love You. I think it's a very experimental rock output from them that you can kind of hear that sound more in bossa nova, but then like I said, Gouge Away is just a perfect ending to that album. That's like one of the most paranoid songs, one of the most anxious songs, and it just rounds off
Yeah.
the entire album.
I mean, it's just another example of like them mixing pop hooks with like this really deranged imagery.
You can gouge your way, stay all day if you want to.
To me, that song reminds me of like if you eat like 500 milligrams of an edible, and then you sit there and you're just having a panic attack because you've just smoked too much or eaten too much, and you're like, oh my god. I don't know. It's very paranoid song, but I love it. Again, I don't know. It's like the album. You can argue that some of the songs on the half end of it, the last part of it, are kind of weaker than the beginning, but all around, it just I think it flows very well. The bass
Yeah, I
is
mean,
such a
I'm not
strong
saying. I mean,
opening.
I would
Yeah,
listen to any of these tracks before listening to the Red Hot Chili Peppers any day.
I know. I'd rather
I'm not,
listen to this than fucking.
when I say that, I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying like when I was listening
I
back to the
understand.
album
I
before
get
we
it.
did this, I was kind of tuning out after Monkey Gone to Heaven, and it some of it like yeah, La La Love You brought me back a little bit, but I don't know, it just isn't as. I just wonder, like I don't know, like when I'm listening to Surfer Rosa, it just feels like it just the whole time
The whole time
I'm
you're
in
just
it.
nonstop engaged.
Yeah,
Okay, I get that. You're just rock hard nonstop.
yeah, rock hard nonstop.
Here you kind of waver. You're like beginning, boom,
Yeah,
rock hard.
I lose a bit of steam.
Up to that monkey man, my fucking
I need a bit of a
starts to go
fluffer.
down.
I need a bit of fluffer to make it through this album.
And
Yeah.
right by the part it gets to silver, you're like, okay, I'm back again. And you finish out with long and strong, buddy. That's what this album
Yeah,
does. It
I
finishes
mean, it does.
strong.
Yeah, it does finish strong. It is. I don't know. Yeah, I just wonder what people thought about it when it. Like albums like this, I always think about like what people when people first get it. Then the first time they listen to it and it's like brand new, like it's a brand new thing and you're not expecting it.
I think that how I think it had that kind of effect on people, but obviously it's hard to say, but I still think that this album meant a lot to people and impacted all the right people. And then after the years and years of it being out, that's when it really, met its fucking legend status.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of albums at that time. Again, look at Nevermind that came out and it was like already legendary the second it fucking dropped.
Right.
And Doolittle should have been that. Doolittle should have been the Nevermind of 1989, I guess. And Pixies should have been the Nirvana of the 80s. So
Yeah.
that's all I got to say about it. You didn't play Hey. I wish you would have played Hey for me tonight. That'd have been a nice little. Why don't you go ahead? Why don't you fade us out with Hey?
All right.
I apologize on behalf of both of us.
To
Hope
meet
everyone
you.
liked this episode. 'Cause I sure didn't. But I'm glad that we talked about the fucking
Hey, must be a devil between us, or whores in my head, whores at the door, whore in my bed. But hey, where have you been? If you go, I will surely die. What change?